It had been 5 years since we'd all been in the same room together. Even as I turned onto the gravel road that snaked toward Mark's cabin, the thought felt surreal. The trees on either side leaned in like voyeurs, thick with moss and shadow. Northern California forests had a way of swallowing you whole, beautiful, endless, and claustrophobic all at once. My tires crunched over loose stone, the dust curling in the rear view like smoke. I hadn't spoken to Erin since the divorce papers were finalized last spring. Mark had sent the group text 3 months ago. One last trip? Like old times. I found something weird. I ignored it at first. Then the dream started. The cabin sat alone at the edge of a wide clearing, weathered but solid, the wood darkened from years of rain and mountain air. Its single porch light flickered faintly against the coming dusk. I parked beside Dave's Jeep and sat there for a minute, fingers still on the steering wheel, heart ticking in my throat. 1,000 memories fluttered behind my eyes. Bonfire nights, summer hikes, shouting matches, Erin laughing in the river like none of it would ever end. Mark appeared on the porch, waving. "Leo, you made it." He looked thinner than I remembered, face more angular, dark circles under his eyes. I stepped out of the car and braced for the inevitable hug. "You look older," he said. "You look like someone who hasn't left a Reddit thread in 6 months." He laughed, sharp and breathless, and pulled me in anyway. His bones jutted through his coat. "You'll change your tune when you see what I found." Inside, the others were gathered around a worn wooden table covered in maps, notepads, and gear. Sasha glanced up from a bundle of paracord and gave me a small nod. Brian stood near the kitchen, arms crossed, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a camo jacket. Dave snapped a fake photo with his fingers and grinned. Look who finally showed up. The prodigal introvert returns. And then there was Erin. She stood by the window, the last light of day framing her in orange. She didn't smile, not fully, but our eyes met for a heartbeat. "Hey," I said. "Hey." There was nothing else to say. "Not yet." Mark clapped his hands together. "Okay, everyone's here. Good. Now let me show you something insane." He spread out a topographic map like a poker hand. His finger tapped a blank patch northwest of Mount Ryland. There's nothing officially marked here. No trails. No roads. Just dense, untouched forest. But he dug into his pack and pulled out a folded, yellowed document. "This is a land survey from 1973. Look." We leaned in. In faded ink, nestled in the contours of elevation lines, were 2 words, Green Hollow. "Never finished?" Brian asked, arms still folded. Mark shook his head. "Finished. Abandoned. Funded, approved, partially built, then disappeared. No cancellation record. No property transfer. No decommissioning. Just gone." Sasha raised an eyebrow. "So what? A failed commune?" "That's the thing," Mark said, eyes gleaming. "It's not in any modern database. Not even a footnote. But satellite images, low-res ones taken before Google blurred this section, show rooftops. Structures. A grid layout. It's there. Just not acknowledged." "So we're ghost hunting now?" Dave asked, half laughing. "It's not a ghost town," Mark insisted. "It's a time capsule. Preserved. Untouched for 50 years. And I think we can find it." No one spoke at first. Then Erin said softly, "We're already here." And just like that, it was decided. We spent the evening checking packs, redistributing gear, and drinking half-stale beer. Mark told stories, tales of missing hikers, government black sites, Cold War psychic experiments. Brian mostly scowled. Sasha muttered about wasting her vacation days. Dave snapped photos and joked nervously. I watched Erin from the corner of my eye, searching for something familiar in her posture, the way her fingers moved over her sleeping bag. I didn't find it. Outside, the trees pressed close. They didn't sway. No wind. No birds. No distant animal calls. Just the hush of something ancient listening. That night, I lay awake on the top bunk, watching moonlight crawl along the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. My mind ran in loops. The name Green Hollow echoed again and again, tugging at something buried. A childhood memory? A nightmare? I didn't know. But it felt wrong. We left just after sunrise. The first stretch of the hike was gentle. Narrow animal trails wound through thick underbrush. Pine needles softened every step. Shafts of morning light broke through in hazy beams. For a while, it felt like old times. Mark leading with his oversized pack bouncing on his back, Sasha navigating with her compass, Dave snapping candid photos, Brian grumbling about pace, and Erin walking quietly beside me. I tried to strike up conversation. "You still doing the hospital rotation?" I asked. She nodded. Shift lead now. Trauma mostly. Jesus. Heavy. Yeah. Her voice was clipped, neutral. Glad you're here, I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me and for a second something real flickered behind her eyes. Then it vanished. Me too. I think. By noon the terrain shifted. The trail narrowed, the trees grew older, twisted. Vines the width of wrists hung low from bent branches. Fungi bloomed in neon clusters along fallen logs. The air grew thick and humid. Our GPS trackers flickered, then failed entirely. Compasses spun slowly. This doesn't feel like 6 miles, Sasha muttered, frowning at her map. Mark pressed forward. Almost there. It should be just past this ridge. We climbed a crumbling slope thick with brambles. My legs burned. The others grunted and cursed behind me. Then without warning the trees opened. The forest ended like a curtain pulled back. Below us, tucked inside a ravine choked with green, was a town. We stared. Houses sagged under ivy and moss but stood whole. Power lines dipped between leaning poles. A faded sign near a rusted gate read, "Welcome to Green Hollow, ST 1974. A diner. A gas station. A school. Even a drive-in theater with a cracked screen facing an overgrown lot of abandoned cars. Everything was still. No birds. No bugs. No sound. Well, Dave whispered, raising his camera. Guess it wasn't a theory after all. Mark exhaled slowly as if trying not to laugh or cry. It's real. Holy hell, it's real. Aaron took a step forward. It's like it just stopped. Mid-step. I scanned the buildings. One caught my eye, a small 2-story house with peeling turquoise paint and a sunken porch. As I stared, a light flickered inside. Just for a moment. Then darkness. We descended into Green Hollow just after noon. The slope into the ravine was steep, slick with moss and dead pine needles. Mark led the way, boots crunching through undergrowth that had overtaken what used to be sidewalks. Sasha muttered about poor visibility. Dave nearly lost his footing twice, and Brian, ever the silent watchdog, scanned the shadows between houses like he expected gunfire. I stayed near the rear, watching the trees shrink behind us, watching Erin's braids sway between her shoulders, watching the strange little town rise around us like a memory surfacing from water. It was colder at the bottom, noticeably so. A chill rolled through the streets, not wind, just temperature, sudden and still. The air was damp, smelled like wet stone and old paper. The silence here wasn't peaceful. It pressed against your ears like cotton, like the forest had closed a door behind us. We stopped at the main intersection. A weather-beaten street sign still clung to its post, Miller Avenue intersecting with Ridgeway Lane. To our left stood the remains of a diner. Its windows were shattered, but the red vinyl booths inside sat untouched, the counter still lined with overturned mugs. A rusted cash register leaned sideways like a broken neck. I feel like we're trespassing, Sasha whispered. You are? Brian said. Mark ignored them, spinning in a slow circle, eyes wide. It's perfect. It's like a movie set. No, Aaron said softly. It's too real. Dave took a photo of a mailbox rusted to near collapse. This place shouldn't be standing. 50 years in the forest? We should be waist deep in collapse. But everything's still upright. Look at the roof lines. He was right. The structures, weathered and mold-speckled, still stood. The glass was intact in most windows. The paint had faded, not peeled. It was as if the town had aged but not decayed. Mark pointed to the largest building on the next block. That's the community center. The town square's beyond it. Let's set up camp there. We moved in a loose group, stepping over vines and roots that had begun to reclaim the asphalt. I paused beside a newspaper dispenser outside the diner. The front page, sealed behind grimy plastic, read, Carter signs airline deregulation bill. October 25, 1978. The paper inside hadn't yellowed. The town square was more of a roundabout, an open plaza ringed by benches and crumbling flower beds. In the center, a dry fountain crouched beneath vines. The statue atop it was a child holding a kite, though the kite was missing. His face had been worn smooth. We pitched our tents beside the community center. Its wide overhang gave us cover, and the cement steps made a good staging area. Brian unpacked the emergency radio, but the signal was static. No surprise. No birds, Sasha said suddenly. She stood with her hands on her hips, eyes scanning the rooftops. What? Mark asked. No birds. No bugs. Nothing. We all paused. She was right. No fluttering wings. No chirps. No insect drone. Just the faint creak of old wood and the occasional drip of water from cracked gutters. That silence, it wasn't just absence. It felt deliberate. We split up to explore in pairs, promising to reconvene by dusk. Mark and Dave went north to scout the theater. Sasha and Brian took the houses east of the square. That left Aaron and me with the west side. Residential streets, 2 rows of tightly packed homes with collapsing porches and cars rusting in driveways. We walked in silence for a while. "You don't have to say anything," I said finally. "I wasn't planning to," she replied. But after another block, she sighed. "I didn't come here for closure. Or for you. I just needed something else." "I know." She stopped in front of a white clapboard house, the windows dark and clean. "Look at this. The curtains. They're closed but they're not rotted." I approached slowly. "That house looks familiar." Aaron gave me a look. "You've been here?" "No," I paused. "But I swear I've seen that porch before. Maybe in a dream." We stepped inside. The front door wasn't locked. The air inside was cooler still, almost refrigerated. Dust coated everything but not thickly, like the house had been abandoned for weeks, not decades. A rotary phone sat in its cradle. The kitchen table had plates still on it, as if a meal had been interrupted. The calendar on the wall read November 1978. Every date was marked in neat, faded handwriting. Doctor. PDA, grocery. Aaron ran a finger along the windowsill. "There's no dust on the photos." We turned to look. A series of framed photographs lined the mantel. Families. Christmas trees. A child's birthday party. All color, sharp, untouched. But the faces, they were blurred. Not by motion or damage. More like smudged. Like someone had reached into the paper and rubbed their thumb across their identities. Aaron leaned in. "Leo." One photo showed 6 people around a bonfire. 5 adults. 1 child. The forest behind them looked disturbingly familiar. The 6th person, the one in the middle, wore my jacket. Same zipper. Same elbow patch. Same rip on the collar. But the face was blurred, smeared across the frame. Aaron stepped back. "That's not funny. I didn't bring this. I've never been here." We left the house without speaking. We returned to the square at sunset. The others were already back, silent and tense. Mark stood beside the fountain, holding something in his hand. "A photo," he said. "From a mailbox. Look." It was a school portrait of a girl in a yellow dress. She looked exactly like Sasha. Not just a resemblance. The same eyes. Same mole above her lip. "Where'd you get this?" Sasha asked, voice shaking. "In the mailbox on Maple Drive." She snatched it from his hand and turned away. Dave sat near the tents, cradling his camera. "Something weird with the light," he said. "None of the shots are right. Like the angles are off. Shadows curve." Brian stood apart from the group, arms crossed, staring at the community center. "We shouldn't stay here," he said. Mark ignored him. "It's just the atmosphere. Psychological compression. Like deep-sea divers. We're fine." As dusk fell, the town grew darker than it should have. Shadows stretched the wrong way. The streetlights remained dead except for one, across the plaza beside the gas station. It flickered. What? Then again. Then held steady. Aaron whispered, "There's no power." The light continued to glow, pale yellow against the encroaching dark. We watched it for a long time. No one spoke. That first night in Green Hollow felt like a funeral vigil. We gathered around the fire Mark had built in the cracked basin of the town square fountain. The flames licked upward, crackling against the stone, casting long shadows that crawled across the faded benches and cracked pavement. We ate in silence, freeze-dried meals rehydrated with boiled water, the smell of plastic and spice clashing with the strange sweetness still lingering in the air, like rotting apples. Sasha paced the perimeter of our camp, flashlight sweeping methodically. Still no birds. No animals. I haven't even seen a spider. Brian sat with his back to a column, cleaning a small folding knife. Maybe they know better. Mark poked at the fire, his movements jittery. The absence of wildlife could be environmental. Some Cold War towns were built with chemical treatments in the soil to deter pests. "You mean poison," Aaron said flatly. "Preservation," he countered. "Same reason this place hasn't fallen apart. Something here stabilized it." "No mold in the houses," I said quietly. "No cobwebs. No nests." Dave nodded, eyes fixed on the flames. "No time." That turned a few heads. "What do you mean?" Mark asked. Dave hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't know. Just doesn't feel like time's really moving here. Like the second we stepped in, something stopped ticking. Brian muttered, "Okay, now we're just creeping ourselves out." But he didn't sound convinced. I looked up. The stars above us were brilliant, sharp, too sharp. No planes. No satellites. Just cold, impossible stillness. Something in my chest twisted. I forced myself to look away. Around 10:30 we retreated to our tents. Sasha and Brian bunked in one. Dave and Mark in another. Aaron and I had separate tents at opposite corners of the plaza. The fire burned low, popping quietly as it consumed the last of the branches. I tried to sleep. Tried. Every time I closed my eyes, the darkness behind them moved. Not shapes, not dreams, just motion. A ripple in something I couldn't see. My heart ticked too fast. My ears strained for sound, but there was nothing. Not even wind against the tents. Eventually I gave up. I unzipped my tent and stepped out into the plaza, barefoot on cold cement. The fire had died. The square was cloaked in that same dreamless hush. I stood there for a long minute, breathing in air that smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear. Then I heard it. Music. Soft. Distant. Tinny. Dream a little dream of me. The sound drifted from the diner. I stared across the plaza. Its broken windows were black, unmoving, but behind them, the faint blue glow of a jukebox pulsed like a heartbeat. I knew that song. My mother used to hum it when she cooked dinner. But I hadn't heard it in years. I stepped forward. A creak to my left stopped me cold. Sasha stood halfway down the plaza, barefoot, arms limp at her sides. Her eyes were open but blank. "Sasha?" She didn't respond. Her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Her lips moved. "He's already here." "What?" She blinked, seemed to wake up, and looked at me startled. "What the hell, Leo?" she whispered. "Why are you just standing out here? You were sleepwalking." "No, She looked down at her bare feet, then back up. Her face twisted. "God. Okay. Maybe I was weird." We walked back together. I didn't mention the music. But when I looked back at the diner, the light inside was gone. The morning brought fog. Thick gray mist clung low to the ground, hugging buildings and swallowing streets. Our tents were damp. Our boots soaked. Brian made instant coffee that tasted like mud. No one mentioned the cold, but we were all shivering. Dave opened his camera bag and swore. "What?" Mark asked. He held up a roll of undeveloped film. "I didn't bring this." Mark took it, turned it over in his hands. "What do you mean you didn't?" "I mean it wasn't in my gear yesterday. This is old, Kodacolor. Expired. I haven't used this stock in years." "Where was it?" "Inside my jacket pocket." Mark grinned like a kid finding buried treasure. "We have to develop it. We don't have a darkroom." "I saw a pharmacy near the post office," Mark said. "If they have a darkroom, I can rig the chemicals. It's worth checking." Sasha rubbed her arms. "We should inventory the houses today. See how much preserved food is left, anything usable." Brian nodded. "And see if there's a way out. A new route. Our GPS is still dead and the trails vanished." Erin looked at me, her voice low. "You slept last night?" "Not really." "Did you hear anything?" I shook my head. She stared at me a second longer, like she knew I was lying. By afternoon, we had split into smaller groups again. I went with Dave and Mark to explore the pharmacy. The interior was intact, shelves still stocked, though most labels had faded to yellow ghosts. A back room housed a dusty photo lab, the kind used for 1-hour development. Mark grinned like a madman. "I can work with this." Dave watched him warily but handed over the film. "Just be careful." While Mark fiddled with chemicals, Dave and I explored the aisles. I paused in front of a rotating rack of postcards. Most were faded, but one stood out, crisp and new, like it had been printed yesterday. The front showed the Green Hollow Theater. Marquee letters read, "Showing tonight, yours truly." I flipped it over. No stamp. No address. Just 2 words scrawled in looping black ink. "Come home." Back at the plaza, Sasha had set up a tarp and was organizing salvaged goods. Canned food, dry goods, first aid kits. Aaron helped her while Brian mapped streets by hand, recording measurements and dead ends. "I found something," Sasha said when I approached. She handed me a small pink object. A plastic toy. A rabbit. Its ears were chewed. The eyes missing. "I had this exact toy when I was 4, she said quietly. "Same scratches. Same bite marks. Maybe you just forgot it." "No," her voice was hollow. "This is mine. The original." She turned it over. Etched into the bottom with a child's hand was the name Sasha. That night no one spoke by the fire. Mark sat beside the photo lab tent, developing the film in low light. Sasha kept glancing at the rabbit beside her bedroll. Dave stared at the diner. Brian sharpened his knife, slower than usual. Erin finally spoke. "If we found this place," she said, "who else has?" No one answered. The houses on Ridgeway Lane stood like rows of teeth in a mouth long since gone quiet. We moved through them slowly, peeling back the years one room at a time. The silence inside each house was deeper than outside, heavy as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The first house was pale blue, single-story, half its porch swallowed by ivy. Inside it smelled faintly of bleach and dust. The living room was staged like a 1970s Sears catalog. Floral-patterned furniture, plastic covers on the couch, a wood-paneled console TV. Magazines were stacked neatly on the coffee table. The clock on the wall ticked. Mark checked his phone. No signal. No power. But that clock. It wasn't battery-powered. It should have been dead. Yet the second hand moved with steady clicks. In the kitchen, a bowl of plastic fruit sat beside a rotary phone. The refrigerator hummed. I opened it out of reflex. Empty, spotless, cold. The power cord dangled unplugged. Mark ran his fingers along the counter. It's like they were expecting guests. Sasha stood in the hallway, arms rigid. There are toothbrushes in the bathroom. Wet. I stared at her. What? Wet, she repeated. Like someone just used them. She turned and walked out without another word. The second house was worse. Dave opened the front door and the scent hit us all, clove cigarettes, dust and something sweeter underneath like perfume left too long on fabric. The interior was dim, thick with drapes. An upright piano sat in the corner, its keys yellowed, sheet music open to Moonlight Serenade. Erin found a woman's dress laid out on the bed upstairs. Pale green, floral print, perfectly arranged like it had just been ironed. The tag still attached. A receipt on the dresser dated October 28, 1978. "What's going on here?" she whispered. Downstairs, I opened a hall closet and found 6 coats hanging neatly. Beneath them, a shoebox. Inside were Polaroids. They showed the same 6 people over and over again. 2 men. 3 women. 1 child. Always in different outfits. Different locations around town. One photo was at the drive-in theater. Another on the diner steps. Another in front of the community center fountain. One of the men wore a jacket I recognized, Dave's, down to the patch on the left sleeve. I called for him. When he saw the photo, his face went pale. "That's my jacket." "You sure?" He turned it over. "That patch. Custom embroidered. My brother gave it to me." Sasha appeared in the doorway. "You should see this." We followed her to the attic. In the center of the floor sat a child's tea set arranged in a circle. 6 cups, 6 saucers, each filled with dust and tiny plastic bugs. A handwritten sign lay beside it in crayon, "Thank you for staying." That night, we didn't gather at the fire. Everyone sat apart, nursing their own thoughts. The square felt smaller. The town closer. The lights didn't flicker anymore, but we all agreed we'd seen them. Brian started rechecking our route out every hour, marking coordinates in a small green notebook. "No signal. No compass. No trail," he said. "Something is wrong with this place." "No kidding," Dave muttered, staring at the diner again. Mark sat cross-legged, reading through a stack of handwritten town records he'd found in the post office. They had elections, birth records, utilities. This wasn't just a housing project, it was a functioning community. No mention of shutdowns. No warnings. They just stopped writing. "Maybe because they vanished," Brian snapped. "Or maybe," Mark said slowly, "they never left." Around 3 a.m. I woke to footsteps outside my tent. Slow. Measured. I held my breath, listening. The steps stopped near the flap. I reached for my flashlight, but then a soft humming began. A child's voice. Off-key. Ring around the rosy. The breath caught in my throat. Pocket full of posy. The voice was just outside. Ashes, ashes. Silence. I unzipped the flap in one quick motion, heart hammering. No one was there. Just the plaza, empty and silent beneath a pale half-moon. At dawn, Sasha didn't come out of her tent. Erin called her name. No answer. Brian unzipped it, slow and cautious. She sat upright inside, knees drawn to her chest, eyes open, unblinking. Her lips moved. "We've always lived here." "Sasha?" I stepped in. She blinked. Her pupils were wide. Her voice was flat. "I don't know where I'm from." "You're from Seattle." No, a pause. No, that's not right. I don't remember Seattle. I crouched beside her. It's okay. You're just tired. She smiled, slow and strange. I remember the birthday party. The cake. The hat. You were there. What birthday? She didn't answer. Later that morning, she snapped out of it like nothing had happened. She didn't remember the tea set, or the photo, or the name Green Hollow. Brian wanted to leave immediately. I'm not staying another night. We hike out. I don't care if it takes a week. Mark shook his head. We don't even know which way is out. We should wait. Explore. Figure out what this place is. This place is a trap, Brian said. A spider web. I found Erin beside the community board near the schoolhouse. She was staring at a flyer stapled to the rotted cork. Leo. What is it? She stepped aside. The flyer read, Community Potluck, November 1st, 1978. Guest list, handwritten Mark, Dave, Sasha, Brian, Erin, Leo. I reached out and touched the paper. Still warm. We didn't notice she was gone at first. That morning was colder than the last. Mist crawled low along the ground, thick enough to hide our boots. The sky above was cloudless, but a pale, gray hue had settled over everything, as if the sun had lost interest. We ate breakfast in near silence. Oatmeal, black coffee, the occasional cough. Brian kept glancing at the trees beyond the plaza. Dave was cleaning his lens for the 4th time. Mark hadn't slept. Erin was the first to ask, Where's Sasha? We looked around. Her tent was zipped. Her boots were gone. Her pack was missing. Sasha? I called. No answer. Brian immediately moved to the treeline. She's not one to wander off. Not like this. Maybe she's just clearing her head, Mark offered, though his voice lacked conviction. We searched the immediate area. Fountain, schoolhouse, diner, post office. Nothing. No note. No trail. Even in the wet earth there were no footprints. Brian checked the perimeter. Dave took aerial shots from the roof of the community center. Still nothing. And then we found the rabbit. The pink plastic rabbit Sasha had found, her childhood toy, was sitting upright in the middle of Ridgeway Lane, clean and dry despite the damp. I approached slowly, crouching to examine it. Someone, or something, had placed it there deliberately. Erin whispered, Leo? I followed her gaze. Next to the rabbit, drawn in faint, looping lines across the cracked pavement, was a hopscotch grid. The numbers were written in chalk. Still fresh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. I looked at Mark. She didn't draw that. No, he agreed. But it wasn't there yesterday. We expanded the search, but the town had changed. Paths that had once led clearly to certain buildings now split or looped. A corner store we had explored 2 days prior was now replaced by a dry cleaner. The alley behind the diner now fed into a cul-de-sac lined with identical houses. Brian kicked a trash can over. It's shifting. Mark muttered, No, we're misremembering. That has to be it. Erin stepped between them. Don't start. I'm not starting, Brian growled. I'm stating facts. One of us is gone. This place doesn't follow physics. And we've all found things here that shouldn't exist. Dave wandered back into the plaza from the east side, pale and shaking. I found a picture. He held it out to us. It was a Polaroid. Sasha stood in front of the community center. Her face was emotionless, arms at her sides. But the background behind her was wrong. There was no fountain, no plaza. Just black trees and mist. Brian took the photo, turned it over. One word was scrawled in ink. Stay. We split into pairs again, against better judgment. Brian and Erin headed north. Mark and I took west. Dave stayed behind, insisting on organizing the gear, just in case. The deeper Mark and I went, the more the air changed. It grew warmer, then cold again. The wind shifted directions mid-block. Shadows lengthened and coiled in corners. I lost track of how many houses we passed. They began to blur together. Same curtains. Same doormats. Same kitchen table with the same ceramic fruit bowl. Wait, I said. We've already seen this house. No, Mark replied. That one was blue. This one's green. It was blue 5 minutes ago. He didn't respond. Inside the house we found a radio. It was playing. Clear, crackling static laced with faint words. You shouldn't have come? The dial didn't change the station. The plug hung loose from the wall. Go back, go back. I reached to shut it off. Don't, Mark said suddenly. I froze. He stepped between me and the radio, eyes wide. It's a transmission. An echo. Maybe it's her. Mark? We need to stay. What? He turned slowly to face me. Don't you feel it? Like we belong here? I stared at him. You sound like her. His jaw clenched. Then his expression changed, blank confusion, like waking from a dream. I don't know what I was saying. I pulled him out of the house. The radio still whispered behind us. We returned to the plaza at dusk. Brian and Aaron were already there, tense and red-faced. Dave was nowhere to be seen. You find her? Brian asked. No, I said. But Mark found something else. Aaron gestured toward the diner. We found food in there. Warm food. What? Soup. Still steaming. 5 bowls. Set for us. Brian added, and a note. Said, tonight at 7. Mark looked at the sky. It's nearly 7 now. Aaron turned on him. You think we should eat that? I think we're being invited. By what, Mark? He didn't answer. That night, we slept in a tighter circle. No one left the plaza. No one spoke of Sasha. But her absence loomed like a shadow, stretched long and dark across every face. Sometime after midnight, I heard movement again. Not footsteps. Hopping. Sharp plastic tapping against concrete. I peeked out. The rabbit. Sitting beside my tent. Watching. The theater lit up just after nightfall. We'd all gathered in the plaza, trying to plan the next day's search routes, when the old drive-in screen crackled to life. No power source, no noise, just a sudden flare of flickering light against the fog. It played static at first, then shapes. Shadowy outlines of 6 people walking single file down a tree-covered trail. Is that us? Dave whispered. It was. The screen showed our hike into Green Hollow, filmed from above. From behind. From inside the trees. It shifted perspectives like a drone, but smoother. Impossible. Then the film cut to black. Then white. Then words appeared. You never left. Brian stood up. I'm done. We're leaving tomorrow. I'll build a goddamn raft if I have to. Mark, without taking his eyes off the screen, said quietly, You don't understand. We're not supposed to leave. No one spoke. The projector hummed for another moment, then died. The next morning Mark was gone. His tent was zipped and empty. His journal lay on his bedroll, open to a new page written in looping script none of us recognized. Dave and I volunteered to search the theater first. The building sat at the far edge of town, near the overgrown drive-in lot. Its marquee still read, Tonight only, The Vanishing. Inside, the air was dense and cold. Rows of rotting red seats faced a screen crusted in mildew. Dust floated like ash in the projector's light beam, which glowed faintly despite no bulb inside. We split up, Dave checking the projection booth while I moved toward the stage. Behind the screen, a pair of double doors led to a dark corridor. I tried the handle. Locked. Then I heard it. Metal shifting. I turned, flashlight beam sweeping across the back wall. A section of paneling had cracked open behind the concession stand, revealing a hidden stairwell descending into pitch black. Dave, I called. He appeared beside me, camera hanging loosely around his neck. Let's see where this goes. The air grew colder with each step. The stairwell spiraled down for what felt like hundreds of feet. Old concrete walls, red emergency lights flickering every dozen paces. We passed signs, Security Checkpoint Alpha. Authorized personnel only. Property of U.S. Defense Research Initiative. This wasn't just some fallout shelter, Dave whispered. At the bottom we reached a sealed blast door. To our surprise, it was already open. Inside, the facility felt untouched. Like someone had just stepped away for coffee. Desks with papers still arranged in neat stacks. Bulletin boards with hand-drawn maps of Green Hollow. Chalkboards filled with formulas and sketches of human brains. A sign above one doorway read, Cognitive Synchronization Lab. Inside, old CRT monitors flickered with looping data. Diagrams of waveforms. Photographs of the town. Photos of people, blurry faces obscured. One photograph was clearer. It showed Mark. Sitting in a chair, eyes closed, wires attached to his scalp. I stared at it. He looked younger. No beard. Hair buzzed short. This can't be, Dave said. I opened a desk drawer and pulled out a file marked. Subject Hollow 06. Underneath, volunteer. Return June 2025. Integration failed. Dave pointed to a rack of tapes labeled with numbers and names. One was marked, Elio, Day 3. My hands went cold. I didn't touch it. Back in the corridor, Dave found a map of the underground complex. There were 3 levels, all dedicated to various research disciplines. Perception modulation, memory interference, temporal drift modeling. This wasn't just about observing, he said. They were editing people. I flipped through another file. It contained journal entries, part experiment log, part psych evaluation. The writer described identity erosion and emergent collective memory distortions. One entry read, Day 18, they no longer speak in the first person. Group thought forming. Hollow is taking shape. Needs more minds, more roots. Dave whispered, Leo, do you hear that? We both froze. From deeper in the bunker, something was breathing. Heavy, wet, slow. We didn't wait to find out what it was. We ran. When we emerged into daylight, the sky had shifted again. Pale green. No clouds. The shadows from the buildings stretched like fingers, longer than seemed possible. Back at the plaza, Aaron sat alone on the fountain steps. Brian stood near the post office, arms crossed. Where's Mark? I asked. Aaron shook her head. Gone. Just gone. Brian held up something. A photo. It showed Mark standing inside the theater projection booth, arms at his sides. Behind him on the wall were the same looping words. You never left. I turned to Aaron. We found something. Beneath the town. A facility. Government. Experiments. Her face was unreadable. We figured. What? She held out a journal. Sasha's. She had written detailed entries. About the plaza, about the rabbit, about all of us. But the final page was chilling. I remember being born here. That night, none of us slept. We sat in a circle, no fire, no talking. The town hummed softly around us, like electricity under the skin. Dave whispered to me once, I think it's remembering us. What? He didn't answer. I woke with the taste of blood in my mouth and dirt under my nails. I didn't remember falling asleep. Didn't remember lying down. One moment I was standing near the fountain, watching the sky shift colors like oil in water. The next, I was on the floor of the old pharmacy, curled on cracked tile beside a toppled display of toothpaste. My watch was frozen. 7:07 a.m. The second hand twitched but didn't move. I stood slowly, ears ringing. The sunlight outside the window was wrong, too white like it had no source. As I stepped into the street, I saw the others already gathered in the plaza. Aaron was crying. Brian had his gun drawn. Dave stood perfectly still, arms limp at his sides, mouth slightly open. Mark was back. He stood barefoot in the center of the fountain basin, his shirt stained with dirt and blood. His eyes were wide and glassy, and he smiled like someone remembering a song from childhood. I told you, he said, voice raw. We live here now. Brian raised the pistol. That's not Mark. He came back, Aaron said, trembling. We should be glad. He came from below, I said. We saw the facility. He was a subject, not a resident. Dave stepped forward very slowly and asked, Do you remember us? Mark tilted his head. You're from the same dream. That makes us family. Brian moved closer, finger tight on the trigger. Answer the damn question. Mark looked at him, then past him. He raised his hand and pointed. We all turned. On the brick wall of the schoolhouse, something had been drawn overnight. 6 outlines. Human shapes. Each one filled with swirling, black lines like tangled roots. Above them, written in dripping red. New growth. We locked Mark in the old sheriff's station. It felt theatrical, pointless. But none of us could bring ourselves to sleep near him. He didn't resist. Just sat in the cell, whispering to someone who wasn't there. I took first watch. He hummed a song under his breath, off-key, slow. I didn't recognize the tune, but it scraped at something in my skull. Like I'd heard it in a fever dream. I saw her, Mark said, eyes locked on the floor. Sasha? He shook his head. No, the town. She has a shape now. And she remembers every one of us. I said nothing. She said you used to live in the greenhouse on Hollow Bend. With your father. Before he drowned. My father's still alive. Mark looked up. Is he? Back at the plaza, Dave was gone. Aaron found his camera beside the dry fountain, lens cracked. The last photo was a blurred shot of a dark corridor. The metadata was wrong. Timestamped October 31st, 1978, 3:16 a.m. Brian returned from scouting the east end of town and said the diner was gone. Not changed. Not damaged. Gone. In its place was a massive tree, gnarled, black, leafless, with hundreds of keys dangling from its branches. Aaron stared at it for a long time. That tree was in my grandfather's backyard. In Vermont. I used to climb it. You're sure? She nodded. I carved my name into it when I was 10. We walked around the trunk. There, beneath the bark, was Aaron plus Dad 1996. Exactly where she said it would be. Brian whispered, "What the hell is this place doing?" I answered before thinking. "It's replanting us." Later that afternoon, I found a drawing pinned to the bulletin board near the school. A crayon sketch. It showed the plaza, crude and childlike, but unmistakable. The fountain, the tents, the church, and 6 stick figures, each labeled with our names. Sasha crossed out. Dave crossed out. Mark circled. Me smiling. Aaron's figure had no face. I showed it to her. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Do you remember the first time we came here?" I blinked. "What?" She looked at me. "When we were 12. That summer. My parents had just split. You said this town felt like a dream. That never happened." But even as I said it, something stirred in my memory, her hand in mine, walking through a field of sunflowers that shouldn't have existed here. A breeze smelling like burnt sugar. A toy rabbit under a mailbox. I stepped back. "No, that's not real." Aaron didn't argue. That night, I returned to the facility beneath the theater. Alone. I followed the spiraling stairwell into the dark, flashlight trembling in my grip. The air grew colder, heavier. The lights flickered. Inside the archive room, the walls had changed. They pulsed now softly, like something breathing behind them. I moved to the desk where I'd seen the tape labeled LEO, Day 3. It was gone. In its place, a notebook. My handwriting. I opened it. October 27th. Day 1. Arrival successful. Memory matrix holding. Others unaware. Do not reveal past contact. Must avoid direct identity confrontation. October 28th. Subject Sasha destabilized faster than expected. Correction required. Dave shows signs of residual resistance. Monitor. October 29th. Recollection incident. Aaron recalls pre-simulation exposure. Data bleeding. No response from control. Must initiate collapse sequence. I staggered back from the desk. No, I didn't write this. But I had. I recognized the way I crossed my T. The little ink blot I always left at the end of each entry. When I returned to the plaza, the others were asleep. Except Mark. He sat at the edge of the fountain, smiling at the sky. "Isn't it beautiful?" he whispered. "What is?" He looked at me. The part where we stopped pretending we were ever someone else. We found his boots first. Perfectly arranged on the steps of the chapel, laces tied, heels touching. The socks were tucked neatly inside. Brian crouched beside them, frowning. He walked in barefoot. The chapel had been dormant since we arrived. An old, wood-framed building with flaking white paint and a bell tower long missing its bell. But that morning the doors stood open, and the lights were on. Electric. Fluorescent. Buzzing softly. I stepped forward, pushing the door open wider. Inside, the pews were clean. Dustless. The air smelled of lemon polish and wax. Candles burned in iron sconces along the walls, though no matches or lighters sat nearby. The altar was bare, except for a single photograph. Mark. Standing in the plaza. Arms open wide. Smiling. Behind him, the plaza was different. Lush. Green. Trees blooming, grass thick and healthy, buildings clean and restored. Children played near the fountain. Someone barbecued on a grill. Laughter frozen in the photo's silent frame. Brian picked it up. Where was this taken? Nowhere real. He turned it over. A date was scribbled on the back, October 31st, 1978. We found Mark in the bell tower. His body, at least, or what was left of it. He sat slumped against the far wall, eyes open, skin pale and waxy. His lips moved, silently forming words we couldn't hear. His chest rose and fell so faintly it was almost imperceptible. He wasn't dead. He wasn't alive. His skin had fused to the wood behind him, veins trailing outward into the structure like roots. His fingernails had grown into the floorboards. Small white flowers bloomed from his shoulders, their petals curling toward the rafters. Brian turned away, gagging. I stepped closer. Mark looked at me. "Leo," he whispered. "Don't leave me here alone." "I'm not." "She forgets if I'm alone." "Who?" He smiled. "The Hollow." Then he screamed. Not a sound of pain but ecstasy. A scream of release. Of reunion. And then he stopped moving. The flowers kept blooming. We buried him, or what we could remove, behind the schoolhouse. Erin didn't attend. She sat alone in the plaza, mumbling names under her breath like prayer beads. Brian said nothing the entire time. Just dug with the entrenching tool, dirt flying in rhythm, breath sharp and fast. When it was done, we didn't mark the grave. There's no point, he said. This place already knows who's there. That night, the chapel bell rang. What? No wind. No bell. We all heard it. The next morning, the town had changed again. The plaza was gone. In its place, a spiral staircase descending into open earth. Wooden steps, perfect and polished. No dust. No rot. Just a hole in the world beckoning. We don't go down there, Brian said. Erin was drawing in the dirt with her finger. Circles within circles. She's building something, she murmured. She just needs the last pieces. I sat beside her. What do you remember? She blinked. About what? Before. Before what? Before the town. She looked at me confused. There is no before. Brian and I descended into the staircase after sunset. We didn't discuss it. Didn't pack gear. Just walked, flashlights in hand, into the spiral's open mouth. It went down forever. After a while, the air changed, humid and sweet like breath on glass. The walls pulsed, faintly alive. Lights appeared on their own, casting golden glow on everything. Time stuttered. My watch jumped between seconds. I blinked and Brian was ahead of me, then behind. Then there were doors, lined along the wall like cells, each marked with a name. Sasha, Dave, Mark, Erin, Leo. Brian opened his. Inside, a room. A replica of his childhood bedroom. Exact. He stepped in slowly, touched the bed, the bookshelf, the dent in the floorboard. I haven't been here in 20 years. This shouldn't exist. He didn't respond. I opened mine. Inside, the office I worked in before the divorce. My desk. My old computer. The photo of Erin and me at the beach. But everything was wrong. The photo had someone else's face in my body. The desk drawers were full of crayon drawings labeled Daddy. I never had children. I never wanted them. The air turned heavy. We left the rooms behind. At the bottom of the spiral was a door. No handle. No hinges. Just a single word carved into the wood. Gather. It opened on its own. Inside, a chamber. Circular. At its center, a shape. A tower of faces, hundreds, maybe thousands, grafted together, mouths open in silent scream, eyes blank or weeping. Each one familiar. Each one wrong. I saw my own face near the bottom. And Brian's. And Erin's. And faces we hadn't seen in years. Old classmates. Dead relatives. Strangers who had smiled at us once in airports or gas stations. The tower breathed. I want to go, Brian whispered. We can't. Why? Because we're already here. The tower pulsed. And spoke. Not in sound but in memory. Flashes. Erin screaming on the plaza. Dave's camera melting in his hands. Sasha reciting a list of birthdays that never happened. Mark's eyes blooming. Myself speaking a name I'd never heard aloud. It needs witnesses. That voice. My voice. We ran. The staircase was gone. In its place, corridors, endless, looping, identical. The walls pressed in. Names appeared on every surface. Ours, theirs, others. Scratched, painted, carved, burned. Brian started screaming. I turned to calm him. But he wasn't behind me anymore. Just a trail of his footprints. That ended in the middle of the hall. Like he'd been erased mid-step. I surfaced from the spiral at dawn. Alone. The plaza had returned. But it wasn't empty. Erin stood beside the fountain, turning in place, slowly, whispering to herself. She didn't recognize me. I no longer knew what day it was. The sky above Green Hollow no longer changed. It just glowed, white, diffuse, depthless. Shadows didn't move. The air didn't warm. And I hadn't seen Erin in over 12 hours. If 12 hours meant anything anymore. I found the courage to return below when I realized I was forgetting the names of my parents. The theater still stood, but its entrance had changed. The doors were gone, replaced by an arched tunnel of bookshelves, stacked with journals and folders from the underground facility. I didn't question it. I stepped in and let the shelves fold shut behind me. The descent was shorter this time. Or longer. I emerged into a room I didn't recognize, yet knew intimately. A domed chamber of glass and concrete, filled with softly humming machines. At its center, a column of spinning reels, film looping endlessly between them, displaying on 6 walls. Each wall showed a different version of me. In a city wearing a lab coat, alone. On a fishing boat, laughing with a child I didn't know. At a grave, holding flowers, sobbing. Smiling at a wedding I didn't attend. Sitting in a fire lookout, eyes haunted. Walking through Green Hollow again and again and again. A voice echoed from behind the glass. You were meant to observe, not remember. I turned. No one. You volunteered. You helped build her. Who? The Hollow. A structure for containment. For isolation. For dreaming. The reels spun faster. The images blurred. But minds do not isolate well. Not forever. They leak. They merge. What happened to the others? They were good roots. I moved deeper into the chamber. Doors opened without sound. Halls unfolded like pages. Eventually, I found the core, a circular observation room overlooking a black pit. In its center floated a sphere the size of a car, suspended in energy. It pulsed in time with my heartbeat. All around it, monitors showing brainwaves, names, timestamps. One monitor flashed. Leo Hart/original instance. October 22, 1978/current instance. 118/error count, 17. My knees went weak. I grabbed the rail and stared at the sphere. It wasn't metal. It wasn't physical. It was thought. Memory. Consolidated cognition. I remembered the files. Cognitive Synchronization Project, Hollow. Goal. Contain emergent psychic residue via synthetic environment simulation. Method. Collective dream state neural scaffold. Identity reframing. Observational suppression. Erin had been right. We were never visitors. We were residents. Worse, we had helped build it. I found her sitting in a chair at the edge of the observation room. She was humming softly, eyes closed. Erin. She looked at me and smiled. But it wasn't a smile of recognition. It was politeness. A stranger's reflex. You came back, she said. You don't remember me. I remember someone like you. I knelt beside her. Erin, please, come with me. We can leave. We have to try. She blinked. Leave? The town. The simulation. Whatever this is. She leaned in. There is no outside anymore. There never was. We walked together through the lower levels, deeper into the Hollow's mind. Corridors rearranged themselves to lead us downward. Every wall bore new writing. Mantras, apologies, fragments of journal entries. I didn't mean to forget you. We are the dream and the dreamer. Stay. Grow. Become. In the deepest room we found the archive. Thousands of photo albums. Each one labeled with a name. Each one filled with life. Snapshots of every iteration. Every failed escape. Every attempt to fight or flee or remember. I found mine. Volume 117. It ended with a photograph of me standing at the edge of the plaza, hand in hand with a child. The photo beneath it was blank. Waiting. A panel lit up on the far wall. A voice played. An old recording. If this message is playing, the subject has become aware. Full reabsorption must be initiated. Any delay increases the risk of bleed-through. Erin touched my shoulder. You don't have to run. I'm not running. You're forgetting already. She pointed at my arms. Names were written there in pen. Brian, Sasha, Dave, Erin, Leo. Only one remained visible. Leo. The others had faded to smudges. I don't want to forget, I whispered. You don't have to. You just have to let it go. I looked at the sphere one last time. It pulsed once, and then began to open. I saw everything. The first team in 1978, creating the town from merged dream fragments. The first collapse. The volunteers relooped. Memories rewritten. Identities spliced and reabsorbed. Each time the Hollow grew stronger, smarter, hungrier. It didn't just contain memory, it fed on it. On identity. On experience. It didn't want observers. It wanted residents. And I had lived here before. Again. And again. And again. I woke at the edge of the fountain. Alone. No sky above. Just white. No buildings. No wind. Just the town in silence. Waiting. One tent remained. Inside, my journal. A new entry waited on the first blank page. Begin again. I walked through the town one last time. The streets were empty. No tents, no gear, no signs of the others. Even their footprints were gone. The buildings remained, but softened, faded, like memories at the edge of sleep. The colors had drained from the world. Everything was washed in sepia. The diner was closed, its windows fogged from the inside. The post office door hung ajar, revealing only shadow. The fountain no longer held water, only dust and silence. But the sky was alive. It shimmered like celluloid, flickering images too fast to parse. Faces, places, colors. 1,000 lives stuttering in and out of reality. The hollow was no longer hiding. It had bloomed. At the edge of the plaza, the black tree stood where the community center once was. Its branches reached high, scraping the air, and from them hung objects. Shoes, cameras, keys, glasses, necklaces, notes. And one pink plastic rabbit. Sasha's. I stood beneath it and waited. For what, I didn't know. Erin returned in the morning. She didn't walk. She appeared, sitting at the edge of the dry fountain like she'd never left. Hey, she said. Hey. She looked the same. But her eyes, they were quieter. I remembered something last night, she said, brushing a leaf from her lap. What? The day I left. Before the first time. There was a first? There's always a first. She turned to me. You told me to run. But I stayed. I think I always do. I don't remember that. You're not supposed to. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a Polaroid. Handed it to me. It was us. Sitting in the plaza. Laughing. Drinking something in tin mugs. Behind us, the town was bright and clean. She pointed to the corner of the photo. A date. October 31st, 2025. It's today, she said. We walked together to the edge of town. Past Ridgeway Lane. Past Miller Avenue, past the homes that never aged. The forest began again, dense, dark, swallowing light. But the trail was open. Clear. Untouched. You can leave, Erin said. One of us always can. Why me? Because you're still asking questions. I turned to her. Come with me. I can't. I don't want to. Why? She touched the rabbit around her neck, the same one from the tree. Because this is home now. The walk was longer than I remembered. And colder. But the trees opened eventually. The light changed. The air warmed. I emerged near a ranger station at the base of Mount Ryland. My clothes were the same, but my watch worked again. My phone found signal. I had no messages. I hitchhiked to the nearest town. Told a story about getting lost in the woods. Claimed I'd been camping alone. Left out the town. The people. The years. No one questioned me. Why would they? Green Hollow doesn't exist. Not on any map. Not in any archive. Not in any town record. I checked. And checked again. Weeks passed. I rented a room above a bookstore in a small coastal town. Tried to sleep. Tried to forget. But it's not that simple. There are days I wake up with dirt under my fingernails. Nights I dream of static and white skies. I see children playing in the corner of my eye. And sometimes when the wind blows just right, I hear the bell. Just one ring. I keep a notebook now. Filled with names. Drawings. Landmarks. Memories. I read it every morning. Because I'm starting to forget again. Not just the town. Me. Where I came from. What I loved. Who I was. The Hollow never needed fences. It was never about walls. It was always memory. If you forget yourself, you belong to it. And it never forgets you. Sometimes I wonder if I ever left at all. Maybe the ranger station was part of the loop. Maybe the bookstore's just another scene. Maybe I'm still in the basement, looking into the eye of the Hollow, watching it breathe my name over and over until it becomes the only sound I recognize. Maybe that's what it wants. Witnesses. Believers. Stories. Because if you tell someone about Green Hollow, really tell them, if they believe you, if they imagine it even for a second, the Hollow grows. And if you've read this far, maybe it already has.